Welcome to Thursday of Holy Week, also known as Maundy Thursday. This is the day most famously known as the institution for the institution of communion. But this story is way, way bigger than that. So let's dive right in. Now, one of the things about this story, this is Luke 22, verses 1 to 23, is that we need to remember this bigger context, right? This bigger context. So a few things. One, notice the echoes in the second section, verses 7 to 13, this preparing for the Passover, this preparation work. These echoes draw us back to Palm Sunday, just a couple chapters ago. It's a lot of the same concept. Jesus doesn't act like this anywhere else in the Gospels, just these two places. So we're drawn to bring them together. So there's this moment of exaltation, this moment of arrival that's happening. We're being drawn to that moment in this moment. Another thing that we're drawn to is in verse 3 when it says that Satan entered into Judas called Iscariot, who was one of the 12. This is a reminder of what was happening, right? This is a reminder of what was happening in the temptation toward the very beginning of the gospel, when the devil tempts Jesus in the wilderness for 40 days. He tempts him with power, right? And what it says is at the end is that Satan went away and was looking for an opportune time to return. So this is the opportune time. Now notice then Satan doesn't care about Judas. Satan cares about Jesus. That's who he wants. And so what is he hoping to get from Judas? It's not a favor, right? It's actually trying to get Jesus to reject Judas. He's trying to get Jesus to confront his enemies and then ultimately confront the armies and bring the armies under his control. That's the plan, right? So obviously the plan, because that would be consistent with what's happening at the beginning of the gospel, right? So, but look at how Jesus interacts with the people. So this wider context of this week is that there are all these people who are confronting Jesus, and instead of meeting might with might, without fighting with fighting, right? He meets it with a different approach. He doesn't retaliate. He's not looking to take on and make his enemies become his enemies the enemy, right? He's not looking to become the enemy, to make enemies. His enemies are making themselves into enemies, and they are surrounding him. So this is a story that's happening even though he's surrounded immediately by all these friends and an enemy who will betray him, right? But he's also the room is metaphorically surrounded by enemies. And here it's also very important to remember who these enemies are, because as we've seen through the rest of this week, Jesus is none of his enemies are the masses. The masses love Jesus. They want to follow him. His enemies are the chief priests, the scribes, the Pharisees, and the Sadducees, right? The temple leaders, making themselves his enemies. So this is the context, right? And so when we enter into this with this mindset of, isn't this sweet that Jesus is starting something that we're gonna keep doing so that we can go to church every Sunday and we can get that little wafer and we can get that little sip of wine, and it'll be great and that'll make us feel good. How that mindset is utterly alien and disconnected from this moment, right? Because this moment is full of the ignorance of his followers, but the knowledge of Jesus that this all that when he's saying that you all get to come and do this, and I want you all to keep doing this, he's including someone at that table, includes at that table someone who they all would instantaneously reject. And I think this dynamic is really, really central and really, really important to remember, because our brains, right? Our brains understand this. Our brains go, yeah, this is so cool. This is so cool. We need to do this. But our guts act opposite our brains on this one. So what do? Is we look in this one direction, right? We're looking over here and we're like, oh yeah, we're totally doing this. Like all the people, like everyone comes to this table. Everyone is welcome here. This is really, really good. And meanwhile, over here, we're not paying attention, but our hands are concocting a list. We're writing and adding all these names to this list of people who are not allowed to be a part of this deal. And that list keeps growing and growing and growing. And so we come up with an exception list. That's not 99. We're not saying that 99.9% of the people are here, just a couple people that are not included. It just pretty much means everybody. Like that list just keeps growing. So that list isn't 99.9. It's more like, 52%. It's like 43%. It's like, these days in sort of denominational concepts, we're isolating everyone else who's outside of our denominational group. So then we start doing this thing where it's really like 16. This all means like, 8% of people, right? I mean, how just insane is our mindset that we're living with this crazy dichotomy and we're not admitting it. Jesus shows us the complete opposite vision because he feeds Judas. And this makes that split impossible, because that all has to be all, right? Making our all, right? That, is a great language, and it's great when we mean it, but we usually then also come up with that list of exceptions, but we can't. So that meaning of no exceptions also means people who smell, or people who look different, or people who present differently than the binary we want to keep, or people who are doing things in a different way, people who are loud and erratic, people who behave in weird ways. Allowing this table to be open to all people really means we end up having to make choices and accommodations that we really don't want to. So this day, this is the heart. This is at the heart of what's happening. This is really the sort of culmination of Jesus' teaching. It's also really valuable to remember that this is ultimately what we're supposed to be doing through Lent. As people who are following Jesus, we're supposed to have spent this time trying to confront the idea that people we don't want to join us will be joining us on Easter, and we have to figure out how to accept them, and not just accept them, but embrace them. Consider them whole and part of the community. And that is the central challenge for the day. So I want to invite us into that thinking, that mindset, right? That challenge. Like, how can we move into that space? How do we make ourselves more understanding, more consistent with that sense of awe? How do we embrace people that drive us bonkers, right? How do we allow for the people who would call themselves our enemies? How do we allow for that to be our sense of us, right? And there are things. There's so much to this, but work in that space. That is the work of Maundy Thursday. That is the work, and we have a lot to do tomorrow.